ce soir. Il est toujours près de lui. خليني رزينة دي نستنى فيها.
Bonjour à tous.
Good
Je vous rappelle
morning,
que vous pouvez
everybody.
utiliser un casque puisqu'il y aura une traduction simultanée en
There
anglais
is simultaneous translation into
de
English
cette conférence. Je
for
tiens
this
juste à
conference.
signaler
I'd just like
avant de vous
to
présenter
point out before I
les
introduce
talents qui sont
the talents
à côté de moi.
seated next to me
La présence d'Eya et
that
Tayssir
we have
Chikhaoui
Eya
dans le film.
Chikhaoui in the film.
Alors je vais commencer au bout de la table.
So I'll start at the far end of the
présenter,
table. May I
Nadim
introduce
Chikhaoui, producteur du
Nadim
film.
Chikhaoui, who's producer of the film.
Nadim est producteur, il a
Nadim
produit
is the
j'ai vu
producer.
des nombreux films
He
de Philippe Faucon.
also
Et il accompagne
produced some
Kader
other
depuis
of
quelques
her
années,
films,
déjà
and
évidemment sur La Belle et la Meute, qui était un certain
he
regard en
worked
2017.
also on
sur L'homme qui a vendu sa
Beauty
peau en
and
2020.
the Dogs and the Man Who Sold His Skin in
À
2020,
côté, quelqu'un que vous avez découvert,
in addition to
je
Zayn
crois,
Hates the
dans ce
Snow.
film, qui est
Next to him,
Olfa Hamrouni.
we have Olfa Hamrouni.
Est-ce que c'est une actrice?
Is she an
On le saura,
actress?
peut-être dans une heure.
Well, maybe we'll know that in an hour's
En
time.
tout cas, évidemment, vous
In any
l'avez
case,
découverte, puisque ce film raconte
you will have discovered her in the film because the film tells her story. On my left,
Hend Sabri,
Hend
qui est
Sabri,
célèbre
who is
comédienne,
a famous
qu'on a pu
actress
voir dans l'immeuble
and who
d'Acoubian, qu'on a
we
pu
saw
voir dans Le
in
Silence du
l'immeuble
Palais,
d'Acoubian, Le Silence du
qui a
Palais,
reçu un prix d'interprétation.
for which she got a prize.
Merci. Bonjour. Alors, je sais qu'il y a déjà
We
pas mal de
obviously
questions.
have Kawthar Ben Hania. I know there are quite a lot of questions
Je
already.
vais commencer à poser une question
I'd like to start by asking
Kawthar,
a
qui,
question to Kawthar,
que vous connaissez sans doute,
who you no doubt know, who has come to Un Certain Regard with Beauty and the Dogs in 2017, and then The Charlotte of Tunis 2014, 2016 Zainab Hates the Snow, and The Man Who Sold His Skin 2020. This is her first time in the official competition in Cannes. My first question. I know that youth is something very complicated. Could you please tell us how you met Olfa and why you decided to tell her story?
Alors j'écoutais la radio.
I was listening to the radio.
Il y avait une interview avec Olfa.
There was an
en
interview
2016.
with Olfa in
Elle
2016.
parlait de l'histoire de
She
ses
talked
filles,
about
et
the
j'étais
story of her
captivée par,
daughters,
sa
and I was
manière de
captivated
parler,
by the way she
que je
talked.
trouvais à la fois très
I found it
imagée, avec
full
plein
of
de métaphores,
images, with lots
et
of
il y avait
metaphors.
tout, il y avait un spectre très riche
There
d'émotions,
was
et je me suis dit, c'est un
a
personnage de
wide
film, c'est pas
range of
possible.
emotions, and I
Tout de
thought,
suite,
she's the
il y avait
stuff,
une
the
impulsion, j'ai
character of a
appelé le
film.
journaliste, je lui ai demandé
So I
son
called
numéro
the
de téléphone,
journalist and
et je
asked
l'ai
for her
contacté.
phone call,
Voilà,
phone
je l'ai
number, and
contacté, et au
contacted
moment
her.
de lui dire allô, je me suis
When
dit,
I
mais qu'est-ce que
said
je vais lui dire?
hello, I thought to myself,
Et je
what
lui ai dit,
on earth am I going to say to her?
qu'on fasse un film
And I said, well,
ensemble.
I'd like us to make a film together. She thought I was a
Parce qu'à l'époque,
journalist
j'étais pas mal
because at the
sollicitée par
time
les
she was
journalistes.
called upon
Donc
often
voilà, ça a
by the
commencé comme ça,
journalists,
oui.
and that's how things began. I think we have a question here. Hello, Gabriela, Chile. I have a question for Olfa. We saw you on the screen. Your life was also depicted by an actress. We saw the trial, and we could see your life again through the eyes of somebody else. But yesterday you saw the film on a big screen. What was your feeling at the beginning when you saw the actress portraying the character yourself in life? And what was your impression of the end product? Congratulations to the director as well.
وقت اللي سمعت يعني فما اللي هي هند صبري بالذات هي اللي مش تاخذ الدور متاعي فرحت برشا خاطر
When I knew it was Hend Sabri who would play my character, I was very happy.
أما كنت خايفة شوية خاطر هي
one of
كان
her great
عندها
fans.
فيلم قبل اللي هو زهرة حلب مشيت أني تفرجت فيه
Mais j'avais aussi un peu peur parce qu'elle
But I
avait
was
joué
a
dans
bit
un
afraid
film
because
qui
she
s'appelle
played
Fleur d'Alep, que j'avais
in
vu,
a film called Fleur d'Alep, which I
بما
had
انه هو
seen,
يحكي تقريبا نفس حكايتي
qui
اما
raconte la même histoire.
which talks
حسيت
about
إنه
the
مش
same
حقيقة،
story.
على خاطر قلت ممكن ما اقنعتنيش ساعتها، خاطر حسيت فما برشا فبركة فيه، فهمت.
J'avais senti que le film n'était pas très réaliste.
I had the impression that the film wasn't very realistic and didn't really depict reality.
إذا كان هي مش تاخذ لازم نقعد معاها برشا وقت باش توصل الميساج اللي عندي، خاطر اني هي قضية بالنسبة لي أكثر من ما هي فيلم.
Et donc, je me suis dit qu'il fallait que
So
je
I
passe
thought to
beaucoup de temps
myself
avec elle
that
pour lui
I'd have to
expliquer
spend
comment
a
moi
lot
j'avais
of time with
vécu
her
les choses, parce que
to
pour moi, c'est quelque
explain
chose
how
de...
I experience
C'est une vraie
things,
affaire, c'est pas
because
juste
for me
un
this
film.
is a real issue. It's not just a film.
Quand j'ai vu le film pour la première
When
fois,
I saw
j'étais
the film for
surpris.
the first time, I was surprised.
مش نظهر جملة، مش في بالي نظهر جست إني نحكي في أسطورة كهو.
Je ne savais pas que j'allais autant
I
apparaître
didn't
dans le
know
film.
that I would feature so much in the film. I thought there would just be little snippets of time when I tell my story. I didn't think I was going to be quite so present.
Question.
Kitty News. J'ai une question pour Madame Benhania et Madame Olfa.
For Mrs. Benhania and for Olfa. The film is something special, rather unexpected. We have a real character in the film and who plays her own part, and then there's an actress playing that character too. So they both play the same part. For you, Mrs. Benhania, how did this idea occur to you? And Olfa, did you have the feeling that did you feel that you were participating in the writing of the film? Probably, because the film is all about your life. How did you find working on the film?
لا أنا كما قلت لك ما نهتمش برشا بالسينما ولا بالتمثيل جملة، ما نعرفش نمثل، يعني حتى في حياتي ما نجمش نمثل جملة، يعني ما نجم نكون كان ألفا كهو اللي يحب
Elle dit qu'elle n'y connaît rien au cinéma.
I don't know anything about the cinema. I'm not an actress.
Elle dit non, moi je peux être que moi-même.
I can only be myself. I'm not an actress.
Par rapport à la question,
Well, as to your
moi
question,
j'aime beaucoup les frontières entre les gens.
I love
Et là, j'avais un personnage réel.
the fact that I have a real character here. It's her life in the film, and I needed to question her memories. I couldn't do that directly with Olfa all by herself. I need to have her double, a fictional character. When I work with actors, they always ask me questions about the motivations of my characters in the screenplay. Why do they do this? How do they go about it? And I thought to myself, this is a wonderful opportunity to bring in an actress to ask the whys and hows. And you're in the scene, but outside the scene at the same time. So you think about the past. And I believe that the actors were extremely useful in this respect. It was wonderful, and they enabled me to revisit Olfa's memories and the tale of her daughters. I wanted to make the film because I couldn't really understand what happened. Making a film was a means for me to understand what really occurred with Olfa's daughters. At the time, this kind of story happened time and again. Hend Sabri, what's it like being directed as an actress and also by the real character, the real person, when you're playing that character? Well, that's quite a lot to handle. Olfa says she's not an actress. She's just herself, but she has a lot of imagination, even if the story is a very real one. I had to be somewhere between performance and reality. That was a huge challenge. Actors usually try not to imitate or copy, and here I had to observe her for hours and hours and watch how she dressed and how she spoke, how she moved her eyes. She has tremendous charisma, and for me, it was difficult. Every day I went on the set, and I thought, what on earth are we doing? And she said to me, well, that's not your problem. And finally, it's a sort of a hybrid, the film. We have the actors and Olfa, and I think it all worked out very well. Just before I give the floor, I have a question to the producer. I think that the film was shot in a set, a single set. Is that a choice, obviously, on the part of the director? But how do you support that kind of choice, which is very rare in the cinema? I'd like to talk about these sets. Well, it was an aesthetic choice, first of all. It's Kauthor's choice. With Kauthor, she has mastered just about everything when it comes to making a film. And she found this set. It's an abandoned hotel that was very practical. There were a lot of rooms, a lot of different visual identities, yet a given unity. Well, to shoot in a single setting for a producer, well, it was actually quite practical because we stayed there. I don't know whether you remember, Hend, there was a scene that was supposed to last 10 minutes. It lasted 2.5 hours. And we just settled in there for a couple of weeks. And we could improvise and take our time. There's some scenes we could have shot in public places. When she says, oh, the police are going to turn up, well, we were in the city center to Tunis. You can't film that kind of thing just anywhere. Sometimes it needs to be a closed space. Why this choice, a single setting for the film? Well, I often wonder about the decor, the set. In the case of this film, I knew I didn't need to have a very realistic setting. I needed a given style, a given aesthetic. With the blue, I like this color blue, and I knew that the film was quite introspective. So what interested me was the characters that you see in this given setting. I wanted to make things simple. I didn't want to have lots of trucks, technicians, cameras. We were dealing with very intimate matters, things that are very sensitive. And I didn't want to have all this heavy film material around. This film would have been different in style. In the case of this film, it simply wouldn't have worked. It wasn't possible. Eya Chikhaoui, German television. Kauthor, you've explained how you got in contact with Olfa. And Olfa, when Kauthor contacted you, what did you think? We saw in the film that what happened to you had been covered by the media in Tunisia, potentially with this international global film. Did you hesitate to make the film, or was it clear from the outset that it was very essential and important to have the film? Well, she called me. I thought she was a journalist. For the past year, I had been reading the story in all the journals around the world, but I didn't get the expected results because I was trying to convey a message. And she said to me that she wasn't a journalist and she wasn't just going to tell the tale or the story like that, but I wasn't really convinced.
Donc au début, c'était une affaire
At the beginning,
pour faire venir ses filles. Et donc quand Kauthar a commencé à filmer en 2016,
when Kauthar started to film in 2016, she came, she filmed, she left. What I wanted was to get my daughters back.
elle a été très patiente.
But she was very patient. She spent a lot of time with us.
كنا واحدة تفرغ في قلبها نشكي لها في مشاكلنا نشكي ومن بعض نتعارك كانوا البنات يكلموها أنا نتغشش نكلمها مش تعدي فيلم جملة.
Et en fait, quand on parlait, quand on racontait dans le film, on n'avait pas l'impression de faire un film. On avait l'impression de vider notre sac, de raconter nos problèmes.
Felt we were just telling her all about our problems. We quarreled on the set, even outside the set. Every time we had a problem, we called on her.
احنا كل شفنا لقينا نفور من المجتمع قعدنا وحدنا.
Avec ce qui s'est passé en raison de ce qui s'est, je ne veux pas dire à cause de
لقينا الكوثر.
On se sentait un peu mal vu par la société, un peu
We
isolé.
felt rather isolated. We didn't think society viewed us in a very positive light. And she was our only ally. Whenever we had a problem, we called her.
وهي تسجل في مموارها عملته فينا.
Donc elle dit voilà, chaque fois que j'avais un problème, je l'appelais.
Every time I had a problem, I called her. If I had a problem with money, I called her. A problem with my son or my daughters, I would call her. And she remembered all this and decided to make a film.
Voilà.
Je crois qu'il y a une question là.
Bonjour. Je suis Valeria Verbaro from Magazine Italy. So my question is for everyone who wishes to answer. I would want to know if while you were shooting, there was a moment when you had to stop, or a moment when you worried that the movie couldn't be done because it was too painful to tell this story, to leave it again. Thank you.
Should I answer in English? Yes, it was very, how to say, it was very intense in terms of emotion because I was like the first audience for my movie. This is what is wonderful with documentary, because you plan things, but you have surprises all the time. So when Eya started talking about, her sisters, I was crying, and I was thinking about the camera and all the technical stuff, and it was complicated to clear my head because I'm a control freak. I want to control the situation, and here I understood that the fact that emotionally it was strong, it was a very good sign that I have a very good movie with very good characters. So yeah, it was really complicated. And then you have the ethical questions when you film people, their life. And, I've done several documentaries before. So these questions, I'm asking myself this question about all the time, how to film people, what to say, what to keep, what to hide. And it's not always easy task, but I hope I did well, because, I don't know.
Une question ici.
Lynn Toubiana, journaliste à Radio J. Je voudrais d'abord.
I would like to congratulate the director on this kind of film, which is a sort of docu-fiction. It's very rare to see this kind of film selected here in Cannes. I have two questions for Olfa. I was deeply impressed by the strength, the charisma, the suffering that you convey together with your character. I was deeply shocked as well and very much struck by the violence of your character. It's a paradoxical violence. It's legitimate because you didn't choose your husband, but there's violence vis-à-vis one of the daughters as well. The daughter who wants to look Gothic. Why these extremes?
أولا حكيتي على القوة استمديتها من نفسي من الظروف اللي عشتها.
Cette violence, elle vient d'abord des
This
conditions.
violence
En fait, القوة force ou la violence?
or strength, I don't know which, comes from the circumstances.
Donc la force. Donc cette force, pardon.
So this strength
vient de la vie que je.
Comes from the life I lead.
J'ai été élevé seul, sans père, sans mère.
I was brought up alone, without a mother or a father. I had to learn to defend myself.
ممكن طريقة ما أعرفش كيفاش نعبر به لحد الآن ما زلت نستعمل العنف على فكرة ما نجمش نبطله.
Jusqu'à présent, je continue à être violente.
I remain violent to this day. I can't seem to prevent myself.
Je les aime, j'ai peur pour elles.
I love my daughters. I'm afraid for my daughters. I only have my daughters in life. I love them so dearly.
Voilà, donc elle dit qu'elle a un discours imagé pour traduire. Je les frappe, après je pleure, je les reprends.
I hit them, and then I cry, and then I hug them.
Je ne veux pas trop parler du passé, mais quand même.
I don't want to talk too much about the past.
Ma mère m'a jamais frappé.
My mother never hit me.
Ma mère m'a jamais frappé, mais en même temps.
My mother never hit me, but she never took care of me. She never protected me. She never educated me.
Donc je veux pas que mes filles disent plus tard.
I don't want my daughters to say later on that my mother never hit us or me. I'd rather they say, well, she hit me, but she protected me and she cared for me. That's my stance.
Hello, Srđan from Serbia. I have a question first for Kauter. Your film is extraordinary. I mean, we could see some films that combine documentary and feature, but yours is very original. I've never seen such a film. How did you conceive the idea to mix in this way documentary and feature, especially actors who are not actors with the real actors? And were you afraid maybe that real actors would be much better than, you know, ordinary person, I mean daughters or Olfa? And for Olfa, when did you last time hear voices of your daughters from Libya? And do you think that this film could have impact on their liberation? Thank you.
Vas-y, commence alors.
Pardon. Justement, elle me disait qu'elle voulait dire quelque chose par rapport à ça.
She said she wanted to talk about this, so thank you for the question.
Alors justement, ça fait un moment que j'attends cette question.
I've been waiting for the question for some time now.
بالنسبة لي هذا المهم الفيلم هذا موافقت عليه وما صبرت عليه توقع 8 سنين ولا 6 سنين إلا باش نجم نوصل صوتي.
Donc c'est une question très importante pour moi.
It's a very important question for me. I've waited for 8 years with this film. The idea is to really have my voice heard. I can't say that my daughters haven't made a mistake. They lost their way. But they shouldn't bear the responsibility single-handed. First of all, for me, it's the government that is responsible, and probably I bear some responsibility. When they left when they were 15 and 16 years old, they were still minors, they were underage. What I want is that they be repatriated and judged in their country and have a fair trial. There is no law, no moral law, no law of God which should enable young children to find themselves in this situation. So I want to make an appeal to all the human rights organizations. Everyone with a minimum of humanity.
De ma fille Fatma, qui est en réalité ma petite fille, il y a des centaines de filles comme
should help my granddaughter Fatma, who's 8 years old, and there are lots of other young children in the same situation.
Je suis perdu. C'est touchant, comme toujours. Non, mais c'est pas normal qu'une fille
It's not normal that such a young person be in prison and have to experience this kind of violence, which is much greater. No child of that age should have to lead that kind of life.
كان هذايا ترفع درابو تونس على حساب وجيعتي على حساب مشاكلي.
On a levé le drapeau tunisien ici en étant à Cannes.
We raised the Tunisian flag here in Cannes in terms of exposing my life and my problems.
De secrets qui devraient pas.
وتشجعت وطلعتها لا ليش سبب غير اني نطالب بحقوق ولادي هذوما بناتي ثلاثه طبعا ما عندوش زوز ولا ثلاثه بنات.
Donc si j'ai supporté toute cette on va dire épreuve,
born
uniquement dans ce but-là pour
with this situation solely so that my 3 daughters, because I consider my grandchild as a daughter, so that they may.
Si vous voulez me reprocher des choses à moi,
be repatriated and have a fair trial. You can no doubt blame me for certain things.
على حقوق الطفل وضد العنف وترفعوا في رايات ضد العنف انتوا قدامكم متهمه عنيفه مش اي موافقتكم مانيش ضدكم فين العنف انتم كيفك تسكتوا كمجتمع دولي ومنظمات ناس انتم ناس انتم بشر.
Vous êtes des êtres humains, vous
you are human beings.
reprochez ma violence, la société reproche
blame me for being violent, society blames me for being violent, you talk about children's rights. How can one accept this kind of situation? How can one fail to speak out when you have children like mine who are in prison? Is there a date for the release of the film in Tunisia? No, we don't have a date yet. But, of course, there may be some illegal copies that circulate.
Je crois qu'il y a une question au deuxième rang.
I think we have a question.
Juste... Kauter, si tu voulais.
Ah oui. The question about the... Yeah, because when I contacted Olfa, I had this question how her young daughters went in this path. So to understand it, I quickly realized... Ah, ok, très bien. J'ai réalisé très vite que ce qui m'intéressait, en tout cas l'explication du pourquoi du comment, a eu lieu
in terms of the hows and the why. All this was explained through past events. The idea was to try and understand the situation together with Olfa. That's when I said to myself, well, I'll use actors and actresses who can portray the past and thereby question the situation, to move from acting to actually questioning. So this happened quite quickly in the overall maturing of the film. One last question.
Le quotidien Dakar Sénégal. Moi, j'ai été très frappé par une scène particulière où Olfa tient une chatte qui attend des petits.
Has a cat who's pregnant, and at the time I think she says that when the cat is too afraid for her kittens, she'll eat them. How did this scene come into the film? Is it something stated by Olfa? Did you invent it? How did you come about this specific scene? Well, she talks in images. In one of the interviews, she used this expression, which I think is absolutely wonderful. I didn't know that a mother cat is capable of eating her kittens. So I thought to myself, well, maternity is very complicated. It's something that is highly complicated. So we had a cat on the set, and I said, well, do you remember when you said that? She said, yes, I do. And she picked up the cat, and that's how the scene came about. Was the cat pregnant? Yes. There was a pregnant cat on the set in Beauty and the Dogs as well. It portrays maternity. I'm sorry, unfortunately. Maybe one last question?
Vous avez parlé de thérapie.
You talked about
il y a une valeur thérapeutique dans ce film.
There's a therapeutic value to this film. It's a form of catharsis. Olfa, did you do it good? I'm asking a very question. Did it sort of release you of the burden when you were making the film?
يعني وقت اللي احنا نصوروا في الفيلم بالحق ارتحت برشا وتصالحت برشا على فكرة مع صغاري ومع روحي. خرجنا من الفيلم خرجنا بحاجة بوزيتيف على الآخر.
Quand on a fait le film, c'était vraiment très positif.
When we made the film, it was very positive. It helped me no end, even with my relations with my daughters.
برشا وتحرجني.
There are a number of things I'm rather ashamed about. It's true. It's like a weight that I no longer have to contend with, and I can thus be reconciled with my daughters in the past. Thank you.
Merci. Thank you.